Very good.
Good evening. Welcome to the February 24th West Clermont School Board meeting. Mr. Romano, will you please take roll?
Mr. Patton.
Present.
Mr. Rudy.
Present.
Mrs. Sanborn. Miss Sanborn, sorry. And Mrs. Spencer.
Present.
For present, Mr. Chumley did let us know that he would not be able to attend.
Thank you. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First up is the motion to adopt the agenda. Would someone like to make a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Sanborn. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Spencer. Is there any discussion? Roll call, please.
Miss Sanborn.
Yes.
Mrs. Spencer.
Yes.
Mr. Patton.
Yes.
Mr. Rudy.
Yes.
4 yes. Thank you.
Next up, looks like Merwin Elementary Stride Link team.
Good evening. At tonight's board meeting, we'll be recognizing the Merwin Elementary Stride Link team. If this team could please come forward. We have Jessica Moscarrett, Samantha Cook, Gabrielle Towns. Is that three? Okay. All right, so we are proud to recognize the Stride Link team at Merwin Elementary. Their dedication to creating an inclusive and supportive learning environment has made a tremendous impact on each student in their classroom. Through collaboration of families, specialists, and the entire Merwin team, they ensure every student's needs are met on a daily basis. Not only have they provided exceptional support for their students, but they have also taken on leadership roles, guiding and mentoring 7 paraprofessionals. These educators truly embody the spirit of collaboration, dedication, and leadership that we value so deeply in West Clermont. Their efforts are a shining example of the qualities that celebrate the portrait of an educator. We are so grateful for their hard work and positive impact they're making on our school community. So if we can give them a hand.
I have 2 parrots. They came to support the ladies.
So before you go anywhere, I want to put you on the spot just a little bit. We are so grateful for all that you do, and I know this is a newer program at Merwin that what is it, 3 years old? What, 3 years since you've been there, or 2?
No,
Is it just one?
We've only had one program for 3 years. The 2 of them are new this year. So the fact that we have 3 this year is a lot.
And that takes a lot of collaboration and creativity to make it all work. So, and I know Reba will not be afraid to answer, but from anybody, what do you think sets you apart? Like, why do you think you're standing here? What do you feel like is the kind of the glue that keeps your team so strong?
I think the genuine love that we have, not only for the job, but the students and each other. We care for each other, we check in on each other as much as we can. And when I show up to work, I know that I'm going to be supported, and I know that I'm going to have a good day, no matter what.
Thank you. Good answer. You guys said what she says, right? Well, thank you very much. I think that is such a great testimony, especially knowing that you guys serve some of our highest needs kids in our school district, and you do it in some conditions that are not always optimal, not ever optimal, and yet you rise above it. So thank you so much for all that you do.
Yes, thank you.
You have two cards?
Yeah.
Okay.
Next up is public speaking. Visitors who wish to address the board are asked to state their name, address, and school organization. Remarks should be addressed to the board and should be brief. 3 minutes and to the point. Speakers may offer such as objective criticism or suggestions regarding school operation or programs. The board will not hear personal complaints of school personnel or against any person connected to the school district unless those complaints have first been addressed through the individual departments or administrative involved. Looks like we do have two speakers. Mr. Mack? Dan, you got the timer? Good time, they do.
My name's Dusty Mack. I'm here to talk about racism. I'm a father of a biracial child who was at Willowville Elementary last year. 4592 Ridgewood Court, Batavia, Ohio, 45103. Last year, he was at Willowville Elementary. For the entire school year, he had to deal with the racism and bullying. This went from comments like, "You're Asian, kill yourself," "Ching Chong," "Orange chicken eater." This went on the entire year. These are all separate incidences, 5, 6 different incidents. Nothing ever happened for the entire year. I got so pissed by the end of the year that I went above him into the district. I did a formal investigation. All the things that were said were true. Nothing was done to the child throughout the year. In the board policy, it says all appropriate disciplines were taken. The kid was never suspended. They never removed him from the classroom. The teacher said she never knew about it, even though these incidents were happening in her classroom and she was CC'd. So the formal investigation happened. The other family did an investigation against us. Again, that was retaliation. They paid another student money to falsify information against my son. So they did take action for retaliation. That was at the very end of the school year. 2.5 weeks later, that same kid shows up to our house and ding dong ditch us with 4 other friends. This is after he told my son that he was going to get friends and jump him. So I reply that message to the district. The district's response was, "It's summertime. If it continues in the fall, we'll address it then." So when I start replying with board policies about retaliation, his response was, "Well, we don't know it was actually him." I said, "I have a Ring doorbell." He said, "Well, he could have been doing other houses too. We don't know it was targeted." So that was basically it. We went to the beginning of the school year. I wanted to make sure they weren't on the same bus, or at least at the same bus stop, because it's 6 a.m. when they get on the bus for the middle school. I was told by the administrator of the 6th grade that my son would probably have to be the one that moves buses, since I'm requesting him to change buses. I said, "That's not right. Like, my son's the victim here. Why is my son being punished?" So after multiple phone calls, multiple emails, they finally did remove the other kid, put him on a different school bus. Second day of school, when 6th, 7th, and 8th grade were all on the buses for the very first day, another kid comes up to him and says, "Do I owe you an ass beating?" My son says, "Why would you do that?" He says, "The name of the kid would do that." So all these are all the same kid, and I don't want that kid in trouble anymore, because since then, we have gotten a civil junior protection order, or junior civil protection order, basically a restraining order against that kid. I'm here because no family should ever have to go get a restraining order on an 11-year-old because the district is unwilling to address racism. So this has been an ongoing issue. I've asked multiple administrators, assistant superintendent, from the district office, were those policies ever that were written out in that district?
Unfortunately, you're out of time, Mr. Mack. We can talk afterwards if need be, but you're out of time, okay? It's 3 minutes.
Okay.
Okay, I appreciate it.
So they're denying any questions that I'm asking about the formal investigation.
We don't answer questions at this point. We just listen to them for 3 minutes, okay? So the 3 minutes are up, okay?
So what do I do from here?
You may go sit back down in the audience and listen, and then afterwards, if you want to approach anybody, if we can address, so be it. But right now, we got to move on with our board meeting.
So
Okay.
racism isn't that important to you guys either?
Mr. Mack, we're going to move on, okay? You can go back and sit down, back down, please. Thank you. Next up will be Mr. Gibson.
My name's Ron Gibson. I live at 4025 Astor Court in Amelia, Ohio. Been a resident here for about 5 years. First of all, I'd like to congratulate you on making 4.5 stars on your last report as reported in the last town hall. However, I have some serious concerns and assertions that I'd like to make that I found out in the last town hall. One, the student body is going to grow by 1,800 students by 2023 with no source cited. I was always taught in school to cite your sources. Nielsen.com tracks population growth for Clermont County growing at 0.83% over the last 20 years, a countywide increase of 15,000 residents countywide, not Clermont County School District-wide. An 1,800 school student increase is 22% versus 6.8%. That's almost 4 times higher than the actual population growth. The residents of your community are suffering the same thing that you are as a school district. We're forced to do more with less, and sometimes do the same with less money. You're asking for an income tax of 25 cents per 50, or 25% income tax. No student that lives outside the district should be allowed to register in our district without paying the appropriate taxes based on their household living and household income. It costs $13,000 and change for you to educate a student, at least that's what you're spending. You ask if the levy fails, what are some alternatives? Freeze pay, offer buyouts for employees, remove some benefits, remove annuities, increase class size. That's the reality of what the business world has to deal with every day. You're not immune. You're a school. You rely on taxpayers. I asked a telling question at the last district meeting. It said, I ask, are the number of students that are falling behind in school lunch fees and increasing the numbers asking for assistance for school lunches? And the answer was yes. If you're seeing that parents are already struggling to pay a school lunch, you're now going to come to them and ask you for even more money. During a board meeting, I actually overheard someone say and mention that the cost of groceries, you get much less for the same amount of money. Now I'd like to talk about my impact. I pay $400 a month just for school taxes. And now you've proposed an additional levy that will cost me almost $61 a month. It doesn't sound like a lot, but that's a 15% increase. When is enough going to be enough? Schools have to start getting more creative with donors, building naming, endowments, and grant writing. We can't just keep going to the same well every single time. Just like you drill, you run out of oil, eventually you run out of money. Thank you for your time, I appreciate it.
Thank you, appreciate you. Okay. Next up, we will begin the consent agenda. Start with Dr. Foltz.
Good evening. In front of you is the personnel agenda for February 24th. On the agenda today, we have the retirement of Cindy Evans, a cafe worker at West Clermont High School. She's spent the last 10 years with us, so we wish her well in her next adventure. We also have the resignation of 2 custodians, and this agenda also includes the proposed hiring of 2 custodians. Also on the agenda is proposed transfer from Curtis Mason from interim principal at Clough to principal at Clough beginning the 25-26 school year. Holly Lawson from a 3.5 cafe worker at the middle school to a 6-hour cafe worker. Kenneth Glassmeyer from a full-time parapro aide at the middle school to a part-time paraprofessional aide at WT. On the agenda, we have the proposed approval for supplemental contracts for multiple advisors and clubs, multiple mentor teachers, building leadership team members, home tutors, multiple coaches, including John Volker as our new girls soccer head coach for next year. Included in this agenda is the proposed approval for multiple unpaid leave of absences, multiple substitutes, and school volunteers and student teachers. And finally, the work beyond the contract section are the proposed approval payments for cooperating teachers. This concludes the review of the personnel agenda submission for your consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Foltz. Mr. Gephardt.
Good evening. I'll be asking you to approve the policy updates as presented. This will be a second reading that will come forth. These will include policies, bylaws, will include revisions, those that have been rescinded, new policies, as we have gone over these for the last 30 days. As you've seen, we went through the committee as well. Since this time, since the first reading, I did meet with Neola in person to go through these, and we are in good shape with what we have done and what the revisions that we have put into place. So I'll be asking you to approve these policies and revisions tonight. Also, there'll be a resolution that we'll be asking the board to approve as well. This resolution is that the Board of Education adopts the special education model practices and procedures. These are the model policies that are through Ohio Department of Education to do. We have to have this resolution intact by March 30th, which we have made that deadline. And basically, you either have to adopt the state's model policies or you have to create your own. And working with Neola, most, if not all districts are taking the state policies, the model policies from the state. So I'll be asking you to also approve that as well.
So this policy is our policy, is what you're saying?
Which the resolution is not a policy, it's a resolution, it's not a
Right.
policy.
Well, okay,
It'll be ours, yeah.
okay, thank you.
So you covered both of yours?
Yes.
I'm good too.
Yes.
02 and 3.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 6.04 is request for approval of the minutes. Those are for the minutes of the February 3rd, 2025 regular business meeting. Item 6.05 is request for approval of donations as presented. There are numerous donations from the Willowville Elementary PTO. Tasha Richards donated school supplies and jackets to West Clermont Middle School. Ryan Holmes donated tissues and wipes to West Clermont Middle School. Kaylin Robinson donated clothes to West Clermont Middle School. RTS donated gloves and mittens to West Clermont Middle School for the winter clothing drive. Gold Star Chili donated 200 coupons for free or through for free Coney, sorry about that, for free Coney or three-way to West Clermont High School for the PBIS. Withamsville Church of Christ donated 12 pair of pants for students in need at Withamsville Tabasco Elementary. So the request is to approve those donations as listed. Item 6.06 is request to approve the resolution accepting the amount and rates as determined by the Budget Commission and authorizing the necessary tax levies and certifying them to the county auditor as presented. This is an annual resolution that is done and required to be done. It lists out our current millage by the approved mill. It does an estimate for each of those millages. We did reconcile that with the pro forma that the county auditor provided to us. It lists the full rates and the effective. The effective rate for the school district is 34.635 mils. And so the resolution is to approve accepting the the amounts and rates as determined by the Budget Commission. Item 6.07 is approval of purpose and budget statement for the current school year. There are two of them submitted for that request. Item 6.08 is supplementing and amending the annual appropriations. From time to time, there are adjustments that are requested to be made. We list the appropriations by fund, and those adjustments then are listed out to it as an amendment or supplemental to it. A majority of these are basically from grants, state and federal grants that are provided to us, and as the year goes on, there are minor adjustments to those that are submitted. Item 6.09. 6.09 is the request to approve the financial statements, the bills paid lists, and investments for January 2025 as presented. So the consent agenda is item 6.01. through item 6.09.
Thank you, Mr. Romano. You've heard the recommendation. Would someone like to make a motion? Thank you, Mr. Rudy. Is there a second? Thank you, Ms. Sanborn. Is there any discussion? Okay.
Mr. Rudy?
Yes.
Ms. Sanborn?
Yes.
Mrs. Spencer?
Yes.
Mr. Patton?
Yes.
4 yes. Okay. Thank you.
You're back.
Good evening. 2 weeks ago, we issued a RFP, request for proposal for transportation services. Today, we're due, we did receive 2 proposals. So this Thursday, Mr. Romano, Mr. Gephardt, and myself will interview the 2 companies that submitted proposals, and we will have a recommendation for you in the March 3rd board meeting. Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 7.02 is our statement of facts, and I'm going to ask Dan to go ahead and pull up the presentation. We talked about this at the last board meeting, and you did a level of approval for us to carry forward and continue to share facts with our community. So as you know, there's a bond website that's been specially designed for this affair, this effort in the ballot issue on May 6th. And the statement of facts is kind of our anchor document. It's not beautifully designed. It's meant to be like fact after fact after fact that we know as the ballot issue has a lot of intricate parts to it. So we explain where the idea came from, why we got to this place, why we decided to finance it in the way that we did, what would happen if the levy passes or fails, etc. So before we get into some of those details, I just want to kind of take us back. It's easy when you're looking at colorful slides or you can get swept away with charts and data to forget why we're really here. We're here because we're out of space in the elementaries. We don't sit here and have a desire to have just a new facility just because. We don't think new facilities magically create better teaching, but we do have experience in our district with buildings that have many structural and building challenges just to navigate it every day versus buildings that have been built over the last couple of years. Things that Mrs. Parker has to worry about and think about on a daily basis at Merwin is not a thought on Mr. Jones's mind when he is at Willowville. So there's just some disparity there across our school system, and we've stated that students' homes, their addresses determine what kind of learning environment they have. So that's why we've gone forward. This isn't about pretty buildings and just fancying everything up. This is to solve a real problem. So the first slide really just reiterates those problems. Overcrowding, the aging buildings, improving the facility and learning environments, safety and technology. What we provide at Merwin specifically, because they are the school that has modulars as well as exterior classrooms that are not protected behind a security vestibule like the rest of our schools are. Those are significant things that need to be addressed. To provide equitable facilities across the district, provide for future growth and development, and I'll just remind everybody that the data that we've been using for planning in the school district has been data we've used over the last almost 10 years now, right? Oh, David's not sitting there anymore. I can't ask David. To design and plan for the growth of West Clermont. And so right now, it is predicted through our data Linux that we do with Decision Insight, which I know now the company has a new name, but that original company tells us that we're going to have 1,300 more students by 2030 and then up to 1,600 by 2033. And so as we meet with people like the Economic Development Director of Clermont County, and as we talk to home developers in our community, they are very clear that this community is changing and growing, and it is important that we plan ahead. And so I think it's always important to come back to the why we're here, why we're working on these things, and because I've heard come up in town halls just people concerned about thinking, I love Merwin, the teachers there are wonderful, the learning is great. Well, we're not here to dispute that. We're just here to say that the learning environments are not up to par with what other students are receiving in our school district. And so we found a plan that helps us to A, address overcrowding, and B, get to newer facilities that also help us to be more efficient from moving from 7 elementaries to 6. Another thing before we go into the details that I will share that we learned over the time when we were in the town hall is that when we talk about the per pupil spending in West Clermont, you know, we often say we spend in the bottom of the state. As I've mentioned before, when I first came here 7 years ago, we were 3% spending per pupil in the bottom of the state. And at that time, we were performing in kind of the bottom of the state too, the bottom quarter of the state. Over the last 7 years, we have now moved up to spending in the bottom 16% of the state, and we perform in the top 40% of the state. And what we learned at that meeting is that those numbers don't really resonate with anybody. What we're aiming for is for people to understand that when you put an investment in education, that you should expect an outcome, you should expect progress, and we're always trying to show that. What we learned at the meeting is that this is really what resonates with people, is that when you're in the bottom 16% of the state, this means that per pupil spending is $2,000 less per student in West Clermont compared to how the rest of the state is. And when you multiply that out and you look at a classroom, it's $40,000 less per classroom than on an annual basis than the students in the state of Ohio. And so we're always trying to draw this connection to how we are being good stewards of the finances, of the spending that we are able to do, and that we expect results out of that. And we are proud to say that we are getting those results. We're not settling with where we are, of course. We want to do better, but we know that investment is a key part of that. And that's where the operating budget and this idea of facilities kind of go together, because when you're able to continue to invest in education like we have been, through staff members, through looking at class sizes, adding curriculum, adding technology, tools like that, you can get a strong result, which is what we've done. So this document, I want to go ahead, Dan, and I'll have him kind of just quickly go through it. This is just a recap of things that we've been saying. This particular slide shows our levels of community engagement, that we're not out here just on our own making these decisions, that they've been heavily influenced by the community involvement, that the plan addresses the fact that our elementaries are inequitable, and that one of our elementaries has about 500 students in it, where another elementary has 800 students in it. And it just causes you to be less efficient with staffing when you're dealing with those extremes. And we also mention in here the big challenge in our district, I think is one of the driving challenges of our district, is the middle school. It was a high school built in the 60s, now with 3 grade levels of middle schoolers. So they're in a building not designed for them, and it's an aged building. And every day there's a challenge with navigating that footprint, navigating that campus, especially when you tack on a start time of 7 a.m. And so we really need to change the conditions there. So as you look through all these, you'll see more facts, but the one that I want to kind of spend more time on tonight is if you go to the slide that reads, if the 2025 ballot issue passes. We have it broken down into 3 categories. If the issue passes in the learning environments, we'll have increased learning space for students. So we'll no longer be talking about space issues. We'll ensure all students have access to more modern learning facilities regardless of their home address. It'll include a new intermediate 5-6 and a 7-8 middle school on the current middle school campus. We will be streamlining the number of elementary buildings from 7 to 6, with one of those being a new PK-12 elementary school. There will be additions and or renovations at the following elementaries: Amelia, WT, and Clough. And we'll have upgrades to safety, technology, and furniture everywhere. So that's what will be true if it passes with our learning environments. Also, what will be true is that we'll be able to take advantage of the OFCC funding. You'll see that 20% of our overall project is being funded by them. And it'll help us to avoid inflation as we move quickly. Finally, it supports long-term operational stability. The funding plan provides for long-term upkeep of the facilities, and I'm going to come back to that point in a minute. The district's proposed facilities plan will provide new facilities for our students, and it will avoid additional district money being spent on maintenance and upkeep of aging facilities. That just reiterates the point I was making earlier about we can continue to invest in the classroom versus the operational sides of the classroom. So that's if the issue passes. If you flip to the next slide, this is what happens if the May 2025 ballot issue doesn't pass. And I know Mr. Patton always wants to make sure that we're calling out. This is not designed to be a threatening document or to hold anything over anybody's head. It's just to be really clear about what are the implications if we go into a situation where we're not making a permanent long-term solution in May. Number one, we'll have old building versus new buildings. Older schools will remain while others will contain modern upgrades. Due to projected increased enrollment in affected buildings, class sizes are anticipated to grow because we'll just not have space for them. We'll have continued reliance on modulars and mobile classrooms. So again, teachers on a cart as well as short-term solutions like modulars and other repurposed spaces. The financial consequences are associated with OFCC funding for the project may no longer be available from the state, requiring higher costs for future improvements. And I'll just remind everyone, we have that money now, and what the OFCC kind of expects is that you come back with your local share within 18 months, or we lose our place in line. So there is a timing to this. I mentioned inflation already, and then increased facility and maintenance costs will divert funds away from classroom needs. As an added point of reference, as listed, and I'm reading this to you just because the font is so small here. As listed in the annual CUP report, the district is ranked 509 out of 606 districts, placing spending per pupil on the bottom 16 of the state. Based on this number, we currently go without people, programs, and services. We all know that list there. High school busing, new middle school start time, full elementary specials of music, art, PE, etc. If the May 2025 ballot does not pass, we will continue to stretch our per pupil expenditures to efficiently and effectively educate the affected students. And listed below, we've shown you this on slide decks before when we were presenting the facilities master plan, but this shows that in working with our partners, SHP and Ohio Facilities Commission, that we've identified space needs and facility repairs that in the end are projected to be about $64 million. Obviously, that would not be a cost that would be incurred in one fell swoop, but it just gives you an idea of some of the key ingredients to facilities and what the cost would be. So that's if the ballot would pass, that's if the ballot doesn't pass. The next page I want to call your attention to is the district long-term investment. And this also came out as something interesting to people who attended the town hall, as something that they said, you know, you should talk more about this. Here's the question. Once the Board of Education has paid for the construction of the new facilities plan, what types of continuing and reoccurring expenses will the 0.25% earned income tax cover? So I know there's a sense in the community, people want to know, like, what's your long-term plan? How are you going to take care of these facilities? What's going to happen? This kind of answers it. The revenue generated from the 0.25% earned income tax can only be used for the purposes of general permanent improvements. This includes regular maintenance and upkeep, which generally tends to compound over time. This continued funding will be used to properly maintain learning environments to meet the current and future needs of our students. This funding will not, however, go toward the board's general fund, nor be spent on expenses like employee wages and benefits. So board, this is really a tool for you. It's a tool for us because our role is to give factual information that can be backed up with data. It's not meant to be a persuasive tool. It's more just what are the current realities of our school district, what is the financing plan, and then what's expected for the future based on everything that we know today. So this will be placed on our website after your vote tonight, and then I want to show you at least two other documents that are a little more friendly to look at.
This one first.
Sure, we'll start with that one. And you can probably see it on your screen better than the big screen there. we wanted to have some one-pagers that takes the bulkiness out of this statement of facts and tries, oh, that's interesting. To try to boil it down. So this one is called Building Our Future. Building strong schools leads to strong communities. And the point of this one-pager is to explain the facility master plan, what the costs are, what the ballot measure is, and then it makes it really clear for people what is going to be the cost to the homeowners, what are the residents' costs who also have an earned income, and who pays. And as you know, you guys voted on a pathway that would lead us to diversifying pay among many community and district stakeholders. So this one-pager could be a tool, again, you guys could print off, you could use when you're talking in your neighborhood. Our staff could use it. It's just meant to simplify things a little bit and make it visual. So that's one. The other one-pager is just a reminder everybody that our community engagement is an ongoing process. This is not a one-and-done kind of situation. We've been heavily invested in this since the 21-22 school year and have just listened to lots of community, students, staff, families, and compile that information to help drive our process. And so regardless of a failure or passage, we want to continue this level of engagement, continue to have the community drive the kind of school district that they want to have. So this just reminds you of all those important groups and all the voice of the people here. And then finally, there is a one-pager that you're not going to see this tonight because we are still finalizing review with legal, but it's a May 6 ballot issue flyer that says understanding the impact. And what it does is it takes our community through remembering that the last bond issue was in 2007, and that's what brought us WT and Amelia. Last bond issue. The last operating levy was in 2020. And as you all know, we're planning toward 2030. And so it kind of spaces out and shows you how has the district been financed then between this 2020 to now? How have we invested the reappraisal dollars, the ESSER dollars, et cetera, and what is the trajectory? As you know, the 2020 levy was supposed to last until 2024. Clearly, we've made it to 25. We've been able to go beyond that thanks to our ESSER investments as well as the reappraisal funds. And right now, we're projecting 2026 as the time the operating funds, we start to move into deficit spending. Our goal always is to stretch that beyond 26 if possible, but we want to just make sure we're being upfront with people and like where we are. So this document also kind of shows that history and shows what I just read to you. It reminds you of what happens if the levy passes, what happens if the levy fails. So again, it's another like graphical way to look at it, and it will be finalized here very soon and put up on the website as soon as we can just get a few little design details taken care of. So I wanted, well, I'll say one more thing. We want to make sure you guys are comfortable with the information that's out there and that you feel like it's answering the questions that you're hearing in the community. And so that's why we're creating all these things. So if you, as you're looking at it, think something's confusing or you would like another one-pager created based on questions you have, please just give us that feedback because that's really what we're after. We want to make sure people understand. And Tina, I want to thank you. I know you connected us with the League of Women Voters. So we met with their leader today, and just know that it's a heavy lift to help a whole community understand what's the difference between an operating levy versus a bond, and especially when this project is broken into property tax plus earned income. And so we're looking for partners to help us explain those facts. And so they're going to get back to us on maybe something that they can do to help us out. So thank you very much for that. So. Before I kind of take a breath and give you guys a chance to respond, I want to just say this is such an important time in the life of public education. As you've seen just from emails that we forwarded, maybe things you've seen on the news, the governor has released his budget proposal for the state of Ohio, and the information specifically associated with schools. We've seen a couple models, and it seems like every time we see a model, things get worse. But it looks like we could be set back $2 million over the next 2 years. And Dan will have those figures and talk to you more in detail. I'm talking at a more global level. But there's some real concerns about how that how his proposal will impact West Clermont. So on one side of this issue of schools, we have a state budget that is shrinking. It's getting smaller and smaller and smaller in the investment in our local schools, expecting more and more on the property tax owner. That's what's happening. As our community looks more wealthy with the way they use the metrics of the income here as well as property value increases, et cetera, that forces the formula to invest less in West Clermont. On the other side of things, we've been spending time with our legislators, Senator Johnson, Representative Byrd, and I know we're going to see Representative Schmidt tomorrow to talk about property tax reform, because that's the other thing that you're hearing on the other side, and there's lots of bills that are being proposed that address property tax. So we're kind of, we understand the need, and we certainly want to advocate for reform that is going to be helpful to taxpayers, yet as a school district, this is how schools are funded. And we're here at a real critical time. This is not a time to be passive in your passion for public education and the importance of it, because it's being hit from all different angles. And we could be at a significant crossroads here. And so we need community voice. We need board member voice. We need our staff voice to stay engaged and continue to advocate, because this is what we know is true in West Clermont. And I'm going to show you this in a minute when I do my comments. We created a front and back here, a one-pager, that just kind of celebrates the district. It shows some demographic information and talks about many of the areas that we've had progress in. And it's substantial, what our staff is accomplishing, what our students are accomplishing, and we just don't want to see that go backwards. You'll see there the finalized graduation rate for 2024 is 94%. That was up from 91. So these are significant moves that we want to be shouting from the rooftops, and we want to make sure that our community is connecting with us, not only on educating around our facilities, et cetera, but on public education, because we're at a critical time in our history. So, all right. Good. So I'm going to just open it up to you guys. Is there anything that you're seeing in the statement of facts or these one-pagers? Any comments? We listened to you last time and incorporated those comments into this, but just want to.
That's an action item too.
Oh, yeah, I know. I just want to see if there are any comments about it. Okay. Do you want me to call for the vote first?
No, I just want to make sure
Okay.
you were.
No, I'm definitely going to get the vote. I just wanted to see if you guys had any just questions or anything, but I guess if you want me to just call for the vote, I'll do that, and then we can discuss. Superintendent recommends that you accept the statement of facts as presented.
Oh, I do have a question.
Okay.
It said that the OFCC was about 20% contributing to the
Yes.
program.
Yes.
I thought it was 30% when we started, but did they change it?
No, it's a little bit, you want to explain?
So there's two percentages, okay, you're correct.
Okay.
So the first percentage, which is the 70-30, is on OFCC approved projects. Okay? So when it is an approved project, they will contribute 70-30 on that dollar amount, okay? There is local funded initiatives on top of that dollar amount, okay, which adds up to the 193.1. And when you take the OFCC or the state share on that total 193.1, it amounts to 20%. So I apologize if that's confusing. The district is at a 70-30 on OFCC funded projects,
Okay.
okay? On the total master facility plan, which is 193.1, it's their same dollar amount, but it's divided by a bigger number, which ends up being, their share of that total project is 20%.
Okay.
Okay.
I got you. I understand.
That's a good point. It does get
We've been confused
confusing.
about it as we go, but you're right.
Good
Okay, I'm
point.
okay. Thank you.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay. So at this point, you have heard the recommendation. I'll put that out in the form of a motion. Would someone like to second it? Second. Thank you, Mr. Rudy. Now, is there any further discussion?
Yeah, I have a discussion. We have never in the past that I've been here have ever done a statement of facts that had to be approved by the board before.
This is a
So
newer.
is this something that we're going to continue to do in the near future?
Yes.
Statement of facts?
So when the auditor came out with the guidelines, which the guidelines didn't necessarily change, but how they interpreted them changed. There was a recommendation for school boards to do this. So this is a newer practice.
Best practice.
And it is a best practice. It is designed so that we're all kind of speaking out of the same songbook so much, singing out of the same songbook, because there's so much information, and we want to be as clear as possible. And so this is a way to keep us all synced up, aligned, and saying the same things. It's also, everything that we have here is vetted and reviewed by legal, because you have to be very careful. Just bolding a word on a flyer could be a problem. I mean, it's very intricate, because we cannot be in a position as a school district, as we're communicating, to be promoting or supporting a bond issue. That is not our role. Our role is facts, and so that's what we stick to.
Okay, can I go back? I have a question too.
Okay.
About what the other man said. He said about citing your work, about where you're getting the information from.
Yes.
Do we put where we get, like, I know we jumped 64 spots over the last year. That would be pretty factual, but like the top 40% of the districts in the state value, I mean, those kind of things, do we need to put on here
There's, on the
somewhere?
last page, there's, it cites a lot of the documents. We have, everything that we communicate is cited in some kind of communication we've done with, like for David Foltz's enrollment information, like that's all cited. We have references, so if there's any questions, but each slide here is not cited.
Okay.
But we have, there's no fact in here that doesn't have some kind of document or some kind of link that you can attribute it to.
But, okay, well, it's just like to the layman that may be looking at this and say, well, where are you getting these numbers at?
Yeah.
That's,
Well, and-
that's what I would think that some people would do, which I
Well, and
know
they
my
will,
kids would.
so what we have, Mrs. Spencer, to help with that, on the FAQ page on the board, I don't know if you've looked at it yet, have you seen that? Okay, so what I would recommend that you all do is go to the bond page, because there are FAQs there, there are links there. When you start to produce documents, it becomes so much information, and so a
Yeah.
lot of everything that we have is backed up there on that page. And so it might take some digging, but it's all in there. We're not trying to mislead in any way. It's just you can only fit so much on a page, and we kind of push the boundaries about every time. So if there's anything that's coming out that feels like it's, well, I don't know, like the issue that brought up tonight around the enrollment. Every slide deck we have on that has our sources all cited. And so we can help point people to those documents, no problem. And you'll see that in here. There's a couple references to it, and you'll see that cited on the bottom of some of these slide decks. So if anything ends up standing out that you think, oh, we really need to like scream and shout this citing, then just let us know. But it's in there, because it's loaded. It's loaded. We're going to come back and look at some piece of it. And we might find that we don't need to make any changes, or we might find that there's things that people want to know that we maybe either didn't explain well or need to add information. So we will keep you abreast as all this changes. And as I said, I would just recommend that you all look at the bond page, because it is loaded with information, and it reflects, like when we get questions in on info at West Clare, if we get something multiple times, we'll then turn that into an FAQ. So we try to keep that as, we update it every week with the latest and greatest information from what's on people's minds.
So this will probably become like a handbook type thing
Well, this
eventually.
will, this is like not designed to be beautiful and used. It will be on the website so anybody can look at it, but
Right.
it's not, like, it's kind of a death by PowerPoint kind of PowerPoint, but it keeps all the facts together. These are designed to be more beautifully used and can be used like at meetings, conversations where you can carry them, and they're easier to break apart.
Okay, thanks.
Sure. Okay. Oh, now we're going to do some scenario planning.
We're going to do the vote, though. So
Oh,
it's
I
moved-
forgot.
Moved by Mr.
I
Patton.
don't vote.
It's
I thought we
okay.
did it. Sorry, I forgot.
Moved by Mr. Patton, seconded by Mr. Rudy.
Yes.
Call for the vote. Okay, Mr. Patton,
Yes.
Mr. Rudy,
Yes.
Ms. Sanborn,
Yes.
Mrs. Spencer,
Yes.
4 yes. Thank you. Okay. So it's, I am going to put some things up there, but I'm gonna pass these out first for you.
Is there one for
You can
me
take
or
one
no?
too.
Okay, thanks.
Oops, that's one.
So when I shared a lot about the finances and our outcomes and that connection, what Dan is going to move into now is more of that timeline that we've talked about. We are planning to 2030 in everything that we do, and this will help you see the various, I don't know, scenarios, I guess, that could happen, so that we can all be ready for whatever, so we can, plan ahead and be very aware of positive things as well as consequences that we could experience.
Okay. So, if you recall, and I know we always put a lot of items on the agenda, but at the retreat that we had in early January, one of the items was to look at some different scenarios for us. So some scenarios were put together there. We didn't get to it. We were going to do that, I believe, at the last board meeting, and again, we didn't get to the detail of it. We did do this and walk through some of these scenarios with the cabinet at a meeting so that they look and understand, what's going on within the district too. So the two things I want to talk about tonight, and where's Mr. Gephardt? There's no bingo game on, so I don't know if I have a time limit or not, but anyway. So the two things are, one, the initial scenario planning, okay? And we can, again, with scenarios, we can put anything up there, right? We can adjust different facts in the model as we go through it. But the second thing is, after we go through those scenarios, just a little bit of highlighting on what the current state of the biennium budget is, which begins July 1, 25 and goes 25, 26 through 26, 27. It's a 2-year state biennium budget as we go through that. And so what do we need to consider, as we do this? So part of the scenario planning that I looked at is throughout excuse me, from 2025 currently, our current fiscal year through, we just went through 2029 because that's what our 5-year forecast has on it, is looking at what happens if the bond issue or the ballot issue in May passes, what happens if it doesn't pass, okay? How does that impact our operating funds one way or another to do that? Again, we need to create space, whether that's adding modular units, okay, or increasing class sizes. There's cost of maintaining the buildings, the repair, the aging facilities. Mr. LaFada can cite numerous things in the last 3 months as far as boilers, as far as, roofs leaking and things like that. Those have occurred, and the probability of them reoccurring again is more likely than not into the future. So those are things that need to be taken care of. Okay. So how do some of these things impact the operating fund? So, and I apologize that it's hard to see out there from your view. But so if you go to, it's in the PowerPoint presentation, but it's also in the sheet that I handed out separately. So the first sheet that you see is our current 5-year forecast. Okay, and this is just a summary of what are kind of the total revenues, the total expenditures, and if you go to the third line on that first sheet, it is what's the difference, okay, between the revenue we get and the expenditures we get. That defines whether we're at a surplus or a deficit. So are we accumulating more cash or are we spending more cash than the revenue we bring in? If you look at the right side and go from FY25 through FY29, we start to get into a deficit position or a deficit spending position in FY26. We do have an adequate cash balance that takes us into FY27, but that's when our balances start to diminish because of that deficit spending that is there. What was really important that the superintendent had mentioned earlier in that presentation is, in the current state of things, we are I don't know what the right word is. I'll use the word attack. It's probably not the right word to use. But if you look at our two major sources of revenue, it is local property taxes and it is state funding, okay? I'll talk a little bit more about those at the end, but those are the state funding. In past years, we do all the advocating we can do to maintain what we have. It looks like that may be less in the future. And on the property tax side, given the historic rise in property valuations and the fact that we're at the 20 mil floor, there is inevitably a property tax reform that will do something that will impact revenue to the district on the local side, okay? Those exist. Those aren't built into this projection yet, okay? So if you just look at this and you go all the way down to the bottom, and this is no different than what we said in November, that we have adequate cash balances going into 27. Those start to deplete down. If you look at 27 year where we're down to 15 million as an ending cash balance, and you look at our total revenues of $104 million, total expenses of $112 million, we would probably, if this is on target with projected, we will probably get a letter to let us know that we are approaching a fiscal distress point, okay? So there's fiscal caution, watch, and emergency. That letter will go to the superintendent, myself, board president, and board, basically saying, put a plan together, okay? So that's current reality from the November 5-year forecast, okay? If you turn the page over, there's 4 scenarios that I kind of put together with this, okay? First scenario is just looking at, and the assumptions are at the bottom. So assumptions for scenario 1. The facility issue that's on the 2025 ballot passes, okay? Why is that important? We've been stating that if that issue does not pass, there will be some drain on our operating funds, mainly because there was $60 million plus facility issues for space, i.e. modulars, for rental, for maintenance that needs to be done on roofs or boilers in 3 of our buildings, okay, that's there. The second assumption is there's a 5 mil levy in 2026 on the ballot for operating funds. Assumption is in this scenario that it passes. So as you know, if it's on the ballot anytime during 26, the first collection is in 27 of that new money, okay? So, but we only get half of it during that fiscal year because that's a January to July. It's the second half of that fiscal year. That's why on the second line there, 5 mil levy in 26 passes, we get an additional $5.5 million, 28 11 million, 29 11 million. As we move forward, looking at 2030 where we have to do the renewal of the 2020 levy. Okay, we're going into that year with a good cash balance. Okay, that's page 2 of this document.
So is everyone following, like, what he's trying to illustrate here with the scenario? Because the
Yeah, I'm
first
following
page
it.
is like what it is, second page is, okay, we've moved on and we're crystal balling the future.
Yeah. One of the key things to look at, even with the passage of 5 mils, if you look at the line down, that 6.010, we actually go into, again, the deficit spending in 26 and 27. And then in 28, it's kind of a balanced budget, roughly $300,000, pretty close to a balanced budget. But again, in 29, we look at the deficit spending. Okay? So that's scenario 1. The ballot issue in May passes, assumption that we look at 5 mils during 26. If you go to the next page, assumption scenario number 2, there's a facility issue on the 25 ballot passes. Okay, and we don't do an operating levy in 26, but we move that forward to 27. calendar 27. The millage goes up from 5 mils to 8 mils, okay? So again, because we defer a collection year, okay, in order to get us through 28 and 29, the millage rate would have to go up, so we would collect a little bit more, okay? So one of the things to recognize is that timing is important, okay? Because the longer you wait, the collections don't occur. And so to raise sufficient funds, the millage or the rate has to go up, okay? As we go down to the bottom, kind of a similar impact on the cash balance, the very bottom line of 15.010, okay? We go down to 15 million in FY '27, kind of the same forecasted number. We get a revenue in '28, again, passive levy in '27, first collection is in calendar '28, so it's fiscal year '28 that we get half of that collection, and then in '29 we get the full collection, okay? This is assuming, okay, if you look at the bottom point, a stable property value. One of the reasons that it looked at that, there is a bill out there right now that really is basically saying, even if you're at the 20 mil floor, we're gonna, have a circuit breaker in there so that school districts aren't getting dollars without a vote. There's a bill that says all your emergency levies, all your inside millage, everything goes back to this calculation of the 20 mil floor, which if that happens, we're gonna be above the 20 mil floor. Okay, that brings us up above. Basically meaning that the property tax will be flat, okay, with that. Is that kind of clear as we're going with that? All right. Go to scenario 3. Okay. So scenario 3 is the facility issue is on the 25 ballot and it fails. Okay. No levies in 2026, nor in 2027. Okay, again, stable property values, okay? 0, so if you go to the second line, there is no additional millage levy. There is adjusted revenue with new 5 mils, okay? So add the 5 mils. There's no adjustment for that, so that revenue stays the same. When you go down to line 15.010, or all the way down to the bottom, let me add one thing in there. If you go to below line 5.050, total expenditures, we talked about the $60 million plus of additional costs because the facilities aren't being attended to or the growth isn't there. Anybody's guess is as good as mine as to what number to put in there for those expenses. I put a minimal dollar amount of 2.5 million. I'm sure Mr. LaFata and Mr. Kephart will argue with me, telling me that how do you expect us to maintain those buildings at just $2.5 million in those future years, when we already calculated that there is somewhere in the future about $60 million worth of work, okay? But at a minimum, okay, I put 2.5 million in there. At a minimum, if we're not spending it, what should we, to be prudent, what should we be doing?
Saving it.
Saving it.
Setting it aside so that when it rains, okay, we can take care of it, all right? I mean, that's what we've got to do. That's what we're looking at.
Which year will we get the letter? Is it 26 or 27?
So we would get the letter in 27.
27.
What, the honest answer is I'm not sure. Because when they do the calculation, they look at your forecast. And again, what the letter that the Department of Education in consultation with the state auditor's office is how do we help districts stay in the black, right? How do we help them prevent going into fiscal distress? So we may get the letter, in December after the November 26, right? Because we're projecting that deficit. So probably in December of 26 or January 27, we would get a letter, okay? Because we're telling them what our current situation is, okay, to do that, okay? Their request is, what's your plan? What are you going to do about it? What are you going to do to offset that deficit, okay, as we go forward? So again, with scenario 3, okay, the 25 ballot issue does not pass. There's nothing on a 26 or 27 for operating, and so what does that look like for us? So given that, if we look at scenario 4, okay, the assumption there is, again, the facility issue on 25 ballot does not pass. There's the contemplation of a 1% earned income tax. A 1% earned income tax would be split so that half of that revenue is for operating funds, or 0.5 of a earned income tax is for an operating fund, and 0.5 is for facilities, okay? At that point in time, there's available funds to address the facilities. Keep in mind, and the superintendent tells the story better than I could ever tell it, is where the district in the past had put a bond issue on the ballot and it failed 2 or 3 times.
3, I think it passed on the 4th time, or maybe it passed on the 3rd.
Okay. The bottom line with that actual story was the district could not, the original ballot proposal did an array of facilities.
Yeah, it was
and-
like 4 elementaries plus repairs or upgrades to 2 athletic facilities. That's generically what I remember. And then in the end, it ends up being Amelia and WT elementaries alone for the same millage that the original project was for, multiple years later.
So in splitting that 1%, half for operating, half for facilities, the half for operating does correct the fiscal distress on the operating funds, okay? It makes a very good dent into the current master facility plan. But again, as we know, as things are pushed forward, what that could purchase may change, okay? We may not get all of what the current master facility plan is to do that, okay? As we go forward with that. With this model, I can run a lot of different scenarios. We can put it in a lot of different assumptions. What I just wanted to lay out and help the board to start thinking and to start looking at is, or maybe the first point is, how critical the May ballot is, okay? It is for facilities, but as we've been saying, there is a direct impact to our operating funds should the ballot issue not pass, okay? And that is there. And so we're just trying to be prudent, take that into consideration now. You know, that ballot issue is May 6th. And within 2 weeks after that, or 3 weeks after that, what do I need, what do I put in front of the Board of Education? Another 5-year forecast,
And
right?
then we'll be getting the governor's, or the final budget in June.
Hopefully, we'll be getting something, you know, getting a good indication there to do that, okay? Any questions or any suggestions on these scenarios?
It is a kind of eat the whole elephant moment, but that's why Dan and I worked very hard over the last year or so to keep us all on that. We've got to look and think 2030 and figure out like where we are and what has to happen between now and then, because there are significant implications to what we're talking about and planning that's required. And so we just want to go into it, everybody understanding what's at stake and all the decisions that will need to be made.
So, yeah, and I have to say, in compliments to the superintendent and to the cabinet, you know, for going through an exercise of looking in their own budgets. You know, we talk about how can we continually look at pushing anything in 26 into 27, okay? Give a break and do whatever we can do with that. And there was with the cabinet an exercise of going through and looking at the budget and say, what could we do? what could we do without, or what are some things that would have a low impact to do that? And so those exercises are being done as we go through the budget process this year. It even gets more scrutiny with it. I want to shift now to again, this is where we are currently with the biennium budget, okay?
Before you do, can I
Go
just
ahead.
give one example? Because what reveals in a moment where the cabinet team is looking at their budgets is how complicated this part really is. So I'll use a Larry, since he's not here, technology example tonight. But you look at your budget and you think, well, I'm supposed to be renewing 3 grade levels worth of Chromebooks. And so, can I put that off? Can we make those stretch one more year? Okay, maybe. So you put that off. Well, now, and that next year, not only do you need to do those 3 grade levels, you need to do 3 other ones because it was their turn. And so then that's 6 grade levels of Chromebooks that could need to be replaced at one time. So even putting something off can have a negative impact because it compounds later. And, I mean, this is what we do. You have to make hard decisions sometimes, but it's just not as simple as, let's just kick the can on that, because it can come back and turn into something of a bigger nightmare than you even expected. And so all those kinds of things have to be looked at. And every team member kind of has a story to tell that's similar to that one. That one's just the most obvious one to me. So just know those are the kinds of exercises that we're doing, and that we'll bring those kinds of conversations back here when the time is right. Okay, sorry.
No, that's good. So what I want to go to is kind of the current state of from our perspective, right, the governor's proposed budget and House Bill 96, okay? And what's the impact to the state, what's the impact to public education, what is the impact specifically to West Clermont? A lot of this is taken from a report that was done by the Ohio Economic Policy Institute. And it takes the data and information from legislative services, which does different simulations on the bill to do it. So one of the things that was supposed to happen this biennium was completion of the phase-in of the new school foundation formula, the fair school funding, okay? We're in the 4th year of it. The next biennium completes, year 5 and 6 with it. One of the things that was supposed to be done with that is the state could not immediately implement that formula. So there was a phase-in, okay? And the phase-in was to be over 6 years. There's a couple different components of that phase-in that were there. One of those components had to do with the input data that calculates what the cost is to educate a student in the state, okay? If you're using inputs that are 4 years old or older, you're really not talking about current dollars, okay? You're talking about inputs that are 4 years behind what the current state is. Rightly so, though, the state can't fund everything all at one time, so they do a phase-in approach with that, okay? In the current proposal, the last 2 years, 25, 26 through 26, 27, 25, 26 through 26, 27, was supposed to have the final input updates of all those. That's not in the proposal that came forward, okay? The property value and income data is in there, though. It does get updated, and it's a 3-year average, okay? So if we look at what happened to us this current fiscal year, okay, we were borderline off the formula last year with the valuation increase. I mean, this isn't a test for the board members, but when our local wealth increases, what's the state tell us? You guys pay more locally, right? The state's going to give us less, okay? There's that inverse relationship to do that, okay? Those inputs are in there, though, on that side of the equation to do it, okay? The other component that is in this proposal, okay, and again, there's 4 months of going back and forth in the General Assembly with this, but what it also is in there is we're a district that historically has been under the guarantee, meaning that regardless of the formula, they're not going to give us less than some prior year. For us, that prior year happens to be FY19. Right now, it's FY '25, right? So we're back, we're getting a dollar level with pretty much the same enrollment, okay, of 5+ years ago, okay, to do that, okay? That guarantee in this proposal, in the governor's proposal, is at risk to go away, okay? I'll show you what that means.
And did you hear
in a
that? Like
minute.
that's everyone's head should be turning like with that. That it's significant, that is the proposal, is that we should not guarantee anymore what was guaranteed from fiscal year 19, to go back further than that. It's just very disturbing to think that that is a proposal on the table. And so that's why we have plans to continue to meet with our legislators, because obviously this will be a conversation between now and June when it's finalized. But it's significant.
It is significant in that, I mean, it's hard to grasp for new money, but since marijuana's become legal, the state has made $2.4 million. That's new money into the budget. Where did all that go? Can we grab for that? I mean, to me, it would only make sense that that would be divvied up between the public education or some kind of community service of some kind. And then they said next year, it wasn't even a full year. Next year, it's going to be $1 billion. $1 billion that really wasn't in the budget 5 years ago, and now it is in the budget. So where's all, yeah, I mean, I'm just saying, it seems like that would be something that maybe we could have some people, Mr. Byrd and anybody asking about, because there's no more on this end from the taxpayer it's just not gonna come.
And your comment's a good one, and here's the reality of it. 610 plus or minus school districts in this state, okay? When this biennium budget period comes around, a majority of those districts are looking at what more are we going to get. We're looking at how can we at least keep the same dollar amount.
Right.
I mean, that's a drastic difference. Even if more money were put into the total, and again, you catch what I said earlier, the budget, proposed budget for K-12 public schools, $0 increase. So the total for all those districts is the same in 26 as it was in 25, same as in 27 as it was in 26, okay? I'm gonna skip right, let's skip right to, what that means to us, okay? All right. Our weighted capacity, or the local capacity, okay, because of valuation increase, okay, 9.9%, okay? That's for FY '26. For FY '27, on top of the 9.9%, it goes up another 8.6 or almost another 9%, okay? What does that mean? Go down to the second bullet in that chart, okay? The state share of that formula. So for West Clermont, what it's saying is, and again, it's not of the total revenue for our district, this is just of the state funding, okay? So they calculate a dollar amount, okay, then it says, okay, how much is the state gonna pay and how much is paid locally? For FY '25, the state paid of that formula 28.4%, the rest has to come from local. FY '26, that goes down to 21.2%. Not because the dollar amount stayed the same, it's because some of our guarantee eroded away, and we're losing money now, okay, under that proposal. FY '27, we lose, it goes down again, so the state is funding 14.5%, okay? It's supposed to be made up locally. Go down to the third bullet point. What's that mean in dollars? Where in this current year, we're budgeted to get $28.6 million. And FY '27 with the budget proposal as it currently stands, 27.9, a reduction of almost $700,000. And then in '27, another reduction of $690,000, another $700,000, okay? You probably think my math was wrong, and 694 and 690 only adds up to, a little bit less than 1.4 million, but that 694,000 in FY '26 reoccurred again in '27, so you take that twice and you add the '27 number on it. So over the 2-year biennium, okay, we lose $1 million under the current proposal, okay?
Who did this proposal?
This is the governor's proposal, okay? Full well knowing that it goes to the General Assembly, right?
I know.
But it sets a tone, like
It
that's
sets
what
the
you're saying.
tone. It really sets the tone.
Absolutely.
So what's one of the tones that was set? One of the tones that was set is, we're not gonna update the inputs. Is the General Assembly gonna do something about that? One of the tones that was set is that the guarantees are gonna start to go away. Okay, which means for our district, okay, we're not guaranteed a dollar amount. It's gonna be less as we go in the future. It sets the tone of the fact that the current inputs on the local wealth are current versus inputs on the cost are 4 years old. Okay, so how do we advocate and change that tone for it, okay, to do it? All right. So, again, Mrs. Spencer, glad you're gonna be joining us on the 18th, all right? Because we need
You may
to-
be sorry.
We'll get you talking points. So, I mean, we need to talk to our legislators, and we need to talk to other legislators, right? And let them know, okay? Okay, by the way, when you look at the 610 districts, we're losing money. What's happening to other districts?
They're gaining money.
Right? It's a zero budget increase. If we're losing, someone else is gaining, right?
Right.
Okay, to do that. Right, so when you talk about the financial game that we're in and play, this is part of it, okay? This is where our advocacy really needs to come in, okay? Where others may be advocating for more money, we're advocating to stay the same, okay? Or how do we get more money to do that? I mean, that's really important. Now I'm going to put the first half of the presentation and the second half of the presentation together, okay? The scenarios did not include any reduction in revenue, did not include this, okay? So if I go, back to my desk, back to my computer, back to the spreadsheet and say, okay, now let's put the reduction in revenue in, okay? I have to spread that across 26, 27, 28, 29, and forward, okay? All right? Again, I am hunting for a better word that is,
Not attack.
yeah, not attacking, okay, but our state funding is coming under attack. On the local property tax, we fully admit, we fully understand that property values increased. We fully understand that that impacted our taxpayers, our community, okay? We fully support that there should be some targeted assistance, because of that. Okay, but at the same time, it's difficult to say that as we go forward, it should impact or be on the backs of the school district, okay? If the state has additional resources, if the state has some funding available, then provide that targeted assistance, for that. So, I'm not opposed to that, and we know our community and the taxpayers deserve that too, as we go forward. So, I never want to end meetings on a downer note or so, but this is reality, okay? There's reality, and yes, there's projections, built in there, but even with the projections, I tried to put some minimum in there. I didn't try and put, something over the top into it. Okay? Questions, or?
I think I would just have to go home and relook at this, page for page and
Yeah.
to absorb it and think about it,
Yeah,
how it's going to affect our school district.
yeah. I
Because
mean,
it's a lot to think about and to really dive into.
yeah, I will tell you, until I put it down on the chart, the alarming thing for me was going back to, in the funding formula, and looking at the impact of that share. So of the dollar amount they calculate, the cost to educate a student, okay? So I'm gonna point to it right here. When you see these numbers, and to me, there's always messages there. What's that statement telling us? Those numbers are telling us that the formula says you need to pay more locally. I mean, that's the funding formula that exists. I'm not saying I agree with it, I'm just saying I don't agree with it,
You're
okay?
just the bearer of the
But
news.
that's what it is.
Well, and it's important that every district tell their story, because you'll hear, if you're talking to just any legislator, they'll say, well, we are funding kids that are no longer in schools. These are empty seats. They call it like phantom kids. Well, that's not happening in West Clermont. We are on the move here. We are out of space, and we are a growing community, not a community that's going backwards. But legislators will make assumptions, and they'll hear about one school district, and they'll think it's all of Ohio, and it's not. Another thing is there's some school districts that have very large cash balance on their spreadsheets here. Maybe they're planning for a big bond project, or they know something's coming up, but because some districts have large cash balances, they're saying all of us have large cash balances, and it's just not true. And so you have to know the West Clermont story to be able to advocate for the uniqueness about how our English language learner population is going up, how our special education population is going up, our economically disadvantaged. It costs more money to deal with subgroups that are outside of regular education. And that is part of the story. So we all have to know it very well. So that's why all these documents are being created to help us as we advocate. So as we wrap up, you're finished, right?
I am finished.
Okay. So in the superintendent comments, I'll go quickly. Tomorrow we have our Partner in Education event. Representative Schmidt will be there tomorrow. Senator Johnson's supposed to come. I just didn't get confirmation today, so it kind of just depends on his schedule. So we'll be happy to showcase West Clermont school districts and be able to honor all of our partners in education, whether they're on the WC or Future side of things or on the Whole Learner Network. We are very blessed with our partners. So right now we have over 250 people signed up for tomorrow. So we're very excited. That's a 9:30 breakfast at West Clermont High School, and so just like cross your fingers for all of us here. On March 4th, we have our State of the Schools message. I will do a March 3rd board meeting where I will, and our team will give the report here. But March 4th, the next day, we'll be doing a showcase at the high school where we can see a portrait of a graduate coming to life in our classrooms. So that's at 6 o'clock at the high school, and so we're very excited about that. We have coming up March 19th a town hall at Amelia Elementary where we will continue talking about financing our future, giving our community opportunities to sit in the chair of the superintendent and treasurer and the board and look at our finances and make their recommendations and get their ahas and understandings. And just as I wrap up, just a couple of celebrations. We'll do a bigger celebration of this, but there's some hot off the press news that I want to make sure that we share. One is that 2 of our schools have received the Momentum Award this year. It's significant because it means they scored 3 points higher than they did last year. Plus, they at least have 4 stars in the progress score, which is all about value added and growth. So absolutely incredible for Holly Hill Elementary and Summerside Elementary. So yes, congratulations. I don't think we have any of them here today, do we? We will, they will add, we got it last year as a district, our whole district did that, and Willowville and West Clermont Middle School. So now we have 5 schools in the last 2 years, plus our district, that has been listed as a Momentum Award. So it's one of the biggest awards you can get in the state system. So very exciting. We'll bring them here to celebrate them at some point.
Okay.
And then I won't give this away, but I will be revealing another West Clermont person is an Ohio Person of the Year that I will be able to officially announce tomorrow. So, we've had a District 5 Teacher of the Year. We had a Martha Jennings Holding Teacher there. This is another state-level award that one of our staff members has earned. So we'll be releasing that information tomorrow. And again, we'll bring that person in here. So some really great things are happening. It's very exciting, and just want to keep the celebration going. So that's it, unless you guys have questions for me. Okay.
Okay. So.
Oh, you know what? No, I'm not, okay. What I realized, once, that I did, because I can't see the screen, when Dan put up the statement of facts, it was an older version. We found one error, like probably a half an hour before we came out here. So what is in your board docs is right. What Dan had on the screen is wrong. So we just ignore what was on the screen and just know that board docs is correct and the correct thing will be on the website. So there won't be any confusion out there, but don't look at Dan's.
Okay.
Okay, sorry.
All right. So, So with the treasurer's business, I'm going to start with my comments, and my comments are really just one. We need to advocate during this biennium budget period to make sure we get, the revenue that's due our district, due the community, due to the students, so that there's not added pressure to our local community, okay? The second point is, I think after, there's a series of action items we're taking, 8.01 through 8.11. And I think this is for the people attending too. We're going to go through this action, and I believe there's an executive session, correct?
Yes.
And then after that, probably taking the words out of Mr. Patton's mouth there, but we're not going to have any business after that.
No, we won't.
But there are 11 resolutions that we have to do individually, okay? We can't take them all. The law changed a couple years ago for school districts when they want to file a complaint to the Board of Revisions. That complaint is typically based off the fact that there was a sale transaction in a property, and that property did not have the sales value or the sales price listed as the assessed valuation on the books for tax purposes. And so as the law changed, the Board of Education now has to approve a resolution for each one of those that they file. And two is then we have to notify the property owner that we are filing that. Except for the board resolution, most of that was already done anyway, okay, to do, but we have to go through this. So I apologize, but we're going to go through 11 resolutions, vote on each one, a move and a second and a vote on each one of them, okay? I would just ask for simplicity for record keeping and for it to maybe expedite as we go through that the same two board members might want to move in second. So it just makes it easier to record and go through.
Rock, paper, scissors.
It was Jim and Tammy.
Okay, so I'm going to give you a couple of facts. There are 11 resolutions, okay? When I tally up the sales value of those properties, it totals up to $52,220,759.
We're good. Well, there you
That's the
go.
sales value. When I tally up the value that's on the tax roll, the appraised value, it adds up to $16,362,000, so a difference of $35,858,000, okay? So when you take that times 35% to get the assessed value, okay? And you take that then times our effective tax rate on commercial industrial, and all these properties are really commercial industrial.
Yeah, you said
Some of it's land that may be residential, but if I just take the commercial industrial, that calculates out to $434,000 of additional revenue that the district could get. Okay, so that's why it's important that we always monitor this, that we have an individual that does that, and then we follow the right procedure to have this done. Okay, so it is significant to the school district. Okay, so item 8.01 is resolution authorizing the filing of an original Board of Revision complaint and authorized by Ohio Revised Code 5715.19 with Clermont County Board of Revision asking that the true value of the property located at 860 Old State Route 74 be increased to the June 2023 sale price of $29 million. So recommended.
Oh, you've heard the recommendation. I'll make the motion.
No, Jim is. Jim and Tammy.
It's all right, we already did it.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Mr. Rudy. Okay. It's all right.
Jim was supposed to make the motion, and then Tammy seconded.
Right, we did a rehearsal earlier, but Ryan forgot, so it'll be okay.
So for this first one, it is Mr. Patton moved, Mr. Rudy second.
Yes.
Call the roll.
Yes, please.
Mr. Patton,
Yes.
Mr. Rudy,
Yes.
Ms. Sanborn,
Yes.
Mrs. Spencer.
Yes.
4 yes. Thank you. The second one, similar resolution authorizing the filing. It is for the true value of the property located at 4458 Glen Estee, Withamsville Road, be increased to the October 2023 sale price of $1,400,000.
I'll make the motion. You've heard the recommendation, I'll make the motion. Do I have a second?
Okay. Call the roll.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Patton?
Yes.
Mr. Rudy?
Yes.
Ms. Sanborn?
Yes.
Mrs. Spencer?
Yes.
4 yes. Item 8.03, resolution authorizing the filing. This is for asking that the true value of the property located at 1930 State Route 125 be increased to the November 2023 sale price of $946,212.
Thank you. You have heard the recommendation. I will make the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
Thank you.
Mr. Rudy,
Mr.
second?
Rudy, yes.
Okay. Mr. Patton?
Yes.
Mr. Rudy?
Yes.
Ms. Sanborn?
Yes.
Mrs. Spencer?
Yes.
4 yes. Item 8.04 is a resolution authorizing the filing of the original Board of Revision complaint. That is for the property located at 1114 State Route 125, be increased to the June 2023 sale price of $2,083,544.
Thank you. You've heard the recommendation. I will make that as a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you.
Mr. Patton?
Yes.
Mr. Rudy?
Yes.
Ms. Sanborn?
Yes.
Mrs. Spencer?
Yes.
4 yes. Item number 8.05, a resolution authorizing the filing of an original Board of Revision complaint. This is for the true value of the property located at 3648 State Route 222, be increased to the June 2023 sale price of $1,750,000.
Thank you. You've heard the recommendation. I'll make that in the form of a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Rudy. Roll call, please.
Mr. Patton?
Yes.
Mr. Rudy?
Yes.
Ms. Sanborn?
Yes.
Mrs. Spencer?
Yes.
4 yes. Item number 8.06, resolution authorizing the filing of an original Board of Revisions complaint. Is asking that the true value of the property located at 4342 Glen Estee, Withamsville Road be increased to the March 2023 sale price of $2,836,080.
Thank you. You've heard the recommendation. I'll put that in the form of a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Mr. Patton?
Yes.
Mr. Rudy?
Yes.
Ms. Sanborn?
Yes.
Mrs. Spencer?
Yes.
4 yes. Item, turn the page, 8.07 is a resolution authorizing the filing of an original Board of Revision complaint, asking that the true value of the property located at 4342 Glen Estee, Withamsville Road be increased to the March 2023 sale price of $1,363,920.
Thank you. You've heard the recommendation. I'll put that in the form of a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Rudy. Roll call, please.
Mr. Patton?
Yes.
Mr. Rudy?
Yes.
Ms. Sanborn?
Yes.
Mrs. Spencer?
Yes.
4 yes. Item number 8.08, resolution authorizing the filing of an original Board of Revision complaint, asking that the true value of the property located at 682-696 and 667-695 Traditions Ridge be increased to the July 2023 sale price of $1,083,003.
You've heard the recommendation. I'll put that in the form of a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Rudy. Roll call, please.
Mr. Patton?
Yes.
Mr. Rudy?
Yes.
Ms. Sanborn?
Yes.
Mrs. Spencer?
Yes.
4 yes. Item number 8.09 is a resolution authorizing the filing of an original Board of Revision complaint, asking that the true value of the property located at 637-665 Traditions Ridge be increased by the November 2023 sale price of $854,000.
You heard the recommendation. I'll put that in the form of a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Rudy. Roll call, please.
Mr. Patton?
Yes.
Mr. Rudy?
Yes.
Ms. Sanborn?
Yes.
Mrs. Spencer?
Yes.
4 yes. Two more, thank you. Item 8.10, resolution authorizing the filing of an original Board of Revisions complaint asking that the true value of the property located at 607-635 Traditions Ridge be increased to the December 2023 sale price of $854,000.
You heard the recommendation. I'll put that in the form of a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Rudy. Roll call, please.
Mr. Patton,
Yes.
Mr. Rudy,
Yes.
Ms. Sanborn,
Yes.
Mrs. Spencer.
Yes.
4 yes. Finally, item 8.11, resolution authorizing the filing of an original Board of Revision complaint asking that the true value of the property located at 4000-402 through 4024 Precision Drive be increased to the October 2023 sale price of $10,050,000.
You heard the recommendation. I'll put that in the form of a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Mr. Patton.
Yes.
Mr. Rudy.
Yes.
Ms. Sanborn.
Yes.
Mrs. Spencer.
Yes.
4 yes. I appreciate your patience on that, thank you. I am done with my comments.
Oh, you're done?
Yep, I made those earlier.
Thank you. Moving on to board comments. Let's start with Mrs. Spencer.
I don't really have a No, I'm excited to go up to Columbus to hear some of the, I've never been up there to that legislative, and I'm kind of excited to learn more about how the finances go and try to educate myself a little bit more. But I would encourage everyone to investigate that on their own a little bit, and our legislators are very willing and open to any letters that you would write to them, and it's not hard to do it. You can do it online. And I know Adam Byrd, he's very open to listening to hear what we have to say. So I would encourage our community to kind of get involved in contacting our legislators and finding out why or how we can fix the problem and take some of the burden off of our local taxpayers. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Ms. Spencer. Ms. Sanborn.
I'm good for tonight.
Thank you, Ms.
Thank
Sanborn. Mr. Rudy.
I'm good also.
I'll make mine brief. One correction I want to talk is tomorrow's actually at 9 a.m. at the high school. So it'll be tomorrow at 9 a.m. And then again, just to reiterate, our next board meeting will be March 3rd at 7 p.m. Here at the Civic Center. It does look like we have a need to go into executive session. Looks like we have the need for the purpose of considering the appointment, employment, dismissal, discipline, promotion, demotion, or compensation of a public employee or official, and to consider the investigation of charges or complaints against a public employee, official, licensee, or student. I'll put that in the form of a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Spencer. I'm assuming no discussion on that. Roll call, please.
Mr. Patton.
Yes.
Mrs. Spencer.
Yes.
Mr. Rudy.
Yes.
Ms. Sanborn.
Yes.
4 yes.
There will be nothing that we're coming back out to vote on, so thank you.